The blizzard outside wasn't just blowing, it was screaming. Inside the desolate Amtrak station in North Dakota, the heating vents rattled violently, fighting a losing battle against the bone-chilling cold. 3 friends, Mike, Steve, and Dave, sat huddled on a wooden bench, buried under layers of heavy coats. The last train was long gone, and the morning express felt a lifetime away. "Man, this place," Dave muttered, pulling his beanie down to his eyes. "It's got that slasher movie vibe, you know? Quiet before the screaming starts." Steve let out a nervous chuckle. "Quit it, Dave. It's just an empty room." Wham! The heavy oak door slammed open. A cloud of snow swirled in, followed by a figure stomping off the ice. It was Harry, the station master. His face was a map of deep wrinkles, weathered by too many hard winters. "Hell of a night to be stranded," Harry rasped. His voice sounded like gravel grinding together. He poured a cup of black coffee, the steam rising in the frigid air. "Cold enough to freeze your soul. Reminds me of another night, long ago. But not here, down south, deep in the Louisiana Bayou." The boys went silent. The wind outside seemed to drop, listening. Harry stared into his cup, his eyes drifting to a memory he wished he could forget. "I was just a kid," he began softly. "My uncle worked for Wildlife Patrol near the Atchafalaya Basin. We were out hunting poachers. You boys ever been to the swamp? It's a different kind of quiet, heavy, wet. The heat wraps around you like a suffocating wool blanket. You always feel like something is watching. One night, we dropped anchor in a dead channel. Spanish moss hung from the trees like rotting curtains. My uncle was inside playing cards. I was on the deck with a lantern. The water was black glass. No ripples, no gators, nothing." Harry leaned forward. The shadows on his face deepened. And then, it tore through the silence. "What did?" Mike whispered, barely breathing. "A laugh," Harry said. "Loud, piercing, hysterical. It came from the blackness of the cypress trees. It wasn't an owl. It wasn't a coyote. It sounded human, but wrong. It was broken, hollow." We froze. My uncle grabbed his rifle, racking the bolt. "Who's out there?" he shouted. Silence. Just the humid hum of the swamp. We thought it was some Cajun trapper messing with us, but then it hit again, louder, closer. It vibrated through the hull of the boat. It was mocking us. Cold, cruel laughter, like someone enjoying a joke, only dead men understand. The dogs big, mean hunting hounds. They whimpered and crawled under the bunks. My uncle, a man who wrestled alligators, was shaking. That laughter kept rolling in waves out of the dark, coming from the ruins of an old plantation house that the mud had swallowed 100 years ago. We tried to start the engine, but the weeds choked the prop. We were sitting ducks. All night long, in that pitch black, that maniacal cackle erupted from the void, unholy, evil. Harry took a slow sip of his coffee. The station felt colder than before. Sunrise finally broke the spell. We got the hell out of there. Later, the locals told us. That spot was where an insane asylum collapsed during the Great Hurricane of 1893. Everyone drowned. They say the laughter. It never really stopped. Harry looked up, meeting the boy's terrified eyes. "I've lived in this snow for 40 years, trying to forget the heat of that swamp. But sometimes, when the wind howls just right, I swear I can still hear them laughing." The air was thick enough to choke on that July afternoon, when Old Man Miller finally broke his silence. We sat on his rotting porch deep in the Louisiana Bayou, surrounded by the heavy scent of magnolias and the ozone of an approaching storm. Miller was a retired parson, a man who dealt with the kind of darkness the church preferred to whisper about, never write down. "You asking about the Harrow Creek exorcism?" Miller's voice sounded like gravel grinding on bone. "That wasn't God's work, son. That was something older." He rattled the ice in his tea, staring into the distance before he began. "It was back in '98. I was fresh out of seminary, arrogant enough to think a Bible and a flask of holy water could fix the world. The call came from the Davis family, way out in the sticks. Their daughter, Sarah, was wasting away, burning up with a fever no doctor could name. They said she needed Jesus. I thought she just needed medicine. I was wrong. To get to their farm, I had to navigate a dirt road that was more mud than gravel. I remember passing the skeletal remains of a burned-out chapel. Locals said cultists used it back in the day. As my car crawled past, I saw her, a woman, standing by the charred ruins. She looked faded, like a photograph left in the sun too long. I slowed down, rolling my window down. "Ma'am, you need help?" She didn't move. She didn't blink, but her voice drifted into my car, clear as a church bell. "Turn back, preacher. The girl is marked, and so are you if you stay." I blinked, and she was gone. Just mist and Spanish moss hanging from the trees. I told myself it was the heat playing tricks on a city boy's mind. When I arrived, the Davis farmhouse felt like a tomb. Mr. Davis was pacing the porch, eyes wide and manic. "You gotta save her, Reverend. She's fading." Inside, the air was unnaturally cold. Sarah lay there, pale as a sheet, eyes staring at things I couldn't see. I opened my kit, candles, oil, the good book. But the second I started the Lord's Prayer, the Father grabbed my wrist. His grip was bruising. "Don't, not yet," he hissed, trembling. "He's watching." "Who?" I asked. He didn't answer. He just looked at the ceiling. That night, the storm hit. The power lines went down instantly. We were left with the flickering light of kerosene lanterns. I went to the guest room to heat some soup on a camping stove. I was alone, in the dark. Without warning, the heavy iron pot launched itself off the burner. It didn't fall, it flew. It smashed against the wall with the force of a cannon shot. I froze. The room temperature dropped until I could see my breath. Then, I felt it, a hot, sulfurous breath on the back of my neck. "Leave." The voice didn't come from the room. It growled directly inside my skull. I spun around. Nothing. Just shadows dancing in the lantern light, stretching like long, thin fingers. I ran downstairs. The family dog, a massive German shepherd, was lying dead in the hallway. No wounds, just eyes wide open, frozen in sheer terror. "Mister." Davis sat beside it, weeping silently. I knew then we were out of time. I grabbed my Bible and stepped onto the back porch to clear my head before the final rite. The rain had stopped, leaving a heavy, suffocating fog. That's when I saw it. Looming at the edge of the woods, dwarfing the ancient oak trees, was a shadow. It had to be 10 feet tall. Humanoid, but wrong. Its limbs were too long. Its eyes were like burning coals, fixing me with a gaze that felt like it was peeling the skin off my bones. It wasn't a ghost. It was an ancient demon of the land, older than the Bible in my hand. It let out a laugh, a low, rumbling sound that shook the ground beneath my feet. I fell to my knees. Fear, pure and primal, paralyzed me. I started shouting the Lord's Prayer into the dark, screaming to drown out that laughter. Slowly, the figure dissolved into the night, like smoke in a strong wind. Silence returned to the farm, but a second later, a scream shattered it from inside the house. I rushed back in. Sarah was gone. She had passed the exact moment that thing vanished. Miller looked out at the rain, starting to drum against the porch roof. "I didn't save her," he whispered. "Some darkness is too deep for a simple prayer." I left that town the next morning and never looked back. But sometimes, when the storm clouds gather just right, I can still hear that laughter and the thunder. A heavy silence hung over Blackwood College, broken only by the muffled crunch of boots on fresh snow. Ryan, an accreditation officer and a ghost of this campus's past, tightened his wool scarf against the biting Vermont wind. He stared up at the Gothic spire of Founders Hall. He hadn't set foot here in 10 years. He was here on official business, but his thoughts were consumed by Simon Vance. Simon had been the dean of faculty, a titan of academia. Ambitious, charismatic, and ruthless, he had single-handedly dragged the college from the brink of bankruptcy. But last week, Simon was found dead in his office. Massive heart failure, the coroner's report read. He was 45. Inside the dimly lit faculty lounge, Ryan sat across from Arthur Miller, an emeritus history professor whose face was as lined as the ancient books he taught. "It doesn't add up, Arthur," Ryan said, staring into his lukewarm coffee. Simon was a force of nature. He didn't just die. Arthur didn't look up. His voice was barely a whisper. "Ambition eats its own, Ryan. You know how he got the seat. He forced out old Dean Higgins. It wasn't ethical. It was a coup." "That's just politics," Ryan dismissed, though his stomach churned. "Maybe." Arthur murmured, finally meeting Ryan's eyes. But Simon changed the moment he moved into the main office. He became paranoid. He stopped sleeping. He said the furniture was judging him. The furniture? The desk, Ryan, the founder's desk. A chill that had nothing to do with the drafty window ran down Ryan's spine. He knew the desk, a monstrosity of dark, blackened oak, carved in 1692 by Ezekiel Blackwood himself. Later that afternoon, Ryan stood alone in Simon's sealed office. The air was frigid, the heating vent rattling in a losing battle against the cold. In the center of the room, bathed in shadows, crouched the desk. It looked less like furniture and more like a predator waiting to strike. The carvings on its legs, twisted vines strangling strange reptile-like beasts, seemed to writhe in the failing light. Hidden beneath a stack of budget reports lay a leather-bound journal. Simon's handwriting inside was jagged, frantic. October 12th. I feel them. Eyes, watching from the corners. When I turn, there is nothing but dust and silence. November 3rd. The scratching started tonight, inside the wood, like claws, desperate to get out. I tore the drawers open, empty. November 20th. I saw her, a reflection in the dark window. A woman in gray rags, face smeared with ash, standing directly behind my chair. I screamed, and the glass showed only me. I am losing my mind. December 2nd. The scratching has turned into a voice. One word, over and over. Purge. I tried to work from home, but the bylaws demand the dean sign papers here. At this altar, it's a trap. December 10th. It's not just the woman anymore. Something is with her. A lizard, pale, bloated, with eyes like burning coals. It crawled out from the knee hole. It touched my leg. Cold. So incredibly cold. They know what I did to Higgins. They are here to collect. Ryan slammed the book shut, his breath hitching. The silence in the room suddenly felt heavy, oppressive. You read it, didn't you? Ryan spun around. Arthur stood in the doorway, a grim silhouette against the hall light. Arthur, what is this? Madness? Guilt? Arthur walked slowly into the room, running a hand along the jagged edge of the desk. Ezekiel Blackwood wasn't just a scholar, Ryan. He was a refugee from the Salem trials. He believed knowledge had to be guarded against corruption. Legend says he bound a guardian spirit to this wood cut from a hanging tree struck by lightning. Arthur's eyes bore into Ryan's. The desk is a gatekeeper. To those with a pure heart, it is just wood. But to those who seek power through deceit, to those who cheat and lie to sit in this chair, it becomes an executioner. Ryan looked back at the desk. The carved reptiles seemed to shift, their eyes glinting in the shadows. Simon didn't die of a heart attack, Ryan whispered, the realization dawning on him. The coroner saw a heart attack, Arthur said, turning to leave. But the janitor who found him... He said Simon's face was frozen in a scream of absolute terror. And on the carpet? Wet, muddy footprints. Footprints that were far too long to be human. Ryan didn't wait. He dropped the file and backed out of the room, his heart hammering against his ribs. As he pulled the heavy oak door shut, he froze. From inside the empty office came a distinct, dry scratching sound. Then a whisper that seemed to curl around his ear. Purge. Ryan walked out of Founders Hall and into the snow. He didn't look back. He never returned to Blackwood College.